So, I don't know how to say this. So this person, so that did something happen or whatever between two people. So this person is a man of the cloth. Let me use some neutral language. So he's a man of the cloth. So he says, he apologizes. Note, myself, note. So here I am the sadhu. As a sadhu, I apologize to you. As a sadhu, I apologize to you. I'm looking at this and saying, what kind of an apology is this? What does this mean? As a sadhu, I'm apologizing. Because what it implies, the implication is, I'm the bigger person here. I have to be, it's like saying, I am older to you. I am the more mature one. Therefore, as the older brother, I apologize to you. What does this mean? This is a backhanded apology. It's like saying that, really, shame on you to put me in this position of having to apologize to you. Really, this is what it means, This is called as it's a backhanded apology. See, we do all these things without even realizing sometimes what our language conveys. So this is all fine when it comes. This is all very clear, right? So the whole process of forgiveness is very clear. And for the most part, in this there is no big problem other than the obstacles. Obstacles, of course, have to be understood and try to overcome them. But in terms of acknowledgement, apology, forgiveness, it's a simple process, and we do this all the time with each other. Our bigger problem happens what happens when the person A, who caused all the hurt and the damage, refuses to acknowledge. Suppose I ended my lecture now. Then the next question I'll get. But what happens if the person doesn't even forget apology? Apology is the second step. First step is to acknowledge. First, either the person doesn't apologize for what they did, or they doesn't acknowledge and apologize for what they did to me, and I feel unjustly treated. Then what happens to this forgiveness? Then how do I forgive? Is the question. Is it possible to forgive? Well, definitely, it is not possible in this way. It is not possible, really. Because there is no processing here. And even if for some reason I am able to let go, it cannot revert back to status quo. Really, I don't see how it can. It cannot. But in order to be able to, does that mean I need to hold on to the hurt? No. Then how do I let go? Well, I would say, in order to be able to do that, I have to shift my paradigm of thinking. Really. I cannot look for this kind of a dynamic. I cannot look for an acknowledgement. I cannot look for an apology. I cannot look for a process that's going to make it easy for me to forgive and let go. Then what do I look for? I shift my paradigm to something else. And that is where we, in our tradition, talk about karma. The karma. So in karma, whatever we do, any person does, has a consequence. Has a consequence. Let me explain this one way. Let us say, for example, suppose I tell you that you need not forgive. You need not forgive. Oh really? I need not forgive? No, you need not forgive. So you mean I can hold on to my anger? Yes. Then I ask you a question. What are you angry about? What do you want? No, I want restitution. Correct? I want restitution. I want punishment also. Because this person was unjust. So because a person was unjust, why do you want to get back at them? No, because this is justice. I believe in justice. So I am a just person. This person was unjust to me, and I want that to resolve. Okay. You say you are just. Right. This person did something wrong. Okay. Has to be punished. It's true. Has to be punished. So now you decide to punish. I say you have the freedom to punish. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What is it that you want? What is it going to be adequate compensation for what was done by you? You know, in civil law, so then I looked into how do we go about seeking this restitution. You know, what is the opposite of forgiveness? You know the word for opposite of forgiveness is
Punishment.
Vengeance.
Vengeance. Yes.
Vengeance is opposite of forgiveness. So you are free to seek vengeance. I give you permission. You seek vengeance now. Okay. Only you have to figure out justly what is the correct vengeance. That's the only requirement. But you are free to seek vengeance. So now we have to see how we go about seeking vengeance in society. So there are different ways in which we do this. So we either vengeance is sought by a law of a monarch, by monarchy, you know, in certain countries here. So one king decides. So what is the just punishment for what? Based on what side of the bed he got up. Either that, or based on something that some scripture said. So what part of the body you chop off, you know, if somebody does something. It can be drastic, like an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. There was not long ago a case in one of the countries where somebody caused the other person to have an accident, and the person became paralyzed. And then the punishment was that they induced a medical paralysis for this guy. Or it was either paralysis or amputation, something they did, as a punishment. So it's very arbitrary. So the vengeance I'm saying, so if vengeance is left, or it can be by law. Like in this country, there is a law which determines what is the appropriate punishment. Therefore, when somebody is convicted of a crime, so once they are convicted, have you noticed that the sentencing is never on the same day as the conviction? Sentencing is always after a few weeks. Why is that? Why is that? Why not finish off with the case and go to the next one? You convicted the fellow, you sentence him and be done with it. Why again come back into the court for sentencing after 2 months? Why do we do that?
Everyone thinks in a calm mind.
Just so that the judge can think calmly what happened. Really, why do they do that? Any lawyers here?
I think they give the defendant the opportunity to make a case for mitigating circumstances or
Yeah.
whatever.
Or
Mitigating circumstances. Because I have to, the judge has to decide, he's already convicted, he did the crime. What is the degree of culpability? That's the word. What's the degree of culpability? To what extent is the person responsible for what they did? They are responsible for what happened. But to what extent? He murdered the fellow. But then was it a premeditated murder? Was it murder in the first degree? Was it second degree? Was it manslaughter? Was it insanity based? What were the mitigating circumstances? What is his life background? What is this? What is this? So many things go into it. Before you pass a judgment and a sentencing. No, judgment is over, sentence. Now somebody did a wrong to me. unjustly. I believe in justice. This person hurt my feelings very badly and messed up my life. Now I want, in fairness, I want restitution. So sentencing usually involves restitution. Sometimes it is compensation for what happened. Sometimes it is compensation with, it's called punitive compensation. Sometimes it's punitive. So he cheated you by $1,000 and you sue him for $10 million. And you get a judgment for $5 million. Hey, what does $5 million have to do with $1,000 only I lost? Why does he have to pay $5 million? Because this is a big corporation and you have to set an example and they should not do this again. And for all kinds of reasons, they will give a punitive damage to prevent them from again doing the bad thing. And it is considered fair. Okay, so all these are important factors. Now, this person hurt my feelings, caused all these problems to me, doesn't even want to acknowledge. Forget the question of apology. I have a right to seek compensation, damages, but I am a fair person. Now I have to figure out do you think we can really figure out why people do what they do? What is it that prompts them to behave in a certain way? We cannot. In all fairness, we cannot. We cannot know in our relationships and interactions what people do, why they do. We don't never fully understand it. I don't. But there is a law. There is an order that I believe in. That is the order, is a divine order. That is what we call as the law of karma. It's a law of dharma. Here there is there is really no such thing as forgiveness in dharma and all. It all has to do with what is done and the consequences. It is all which takes into account all mitigating factors and then does what it has to do. The phalam comes. I have faith in it. I trust in that order completely. Only when I recognize that, if I'm able to recognize that, and I also recognize the fact that I cannot justly seek restitution because I cannot account for all the mitigating circumstances or the degree of culpability either. The culpability may be more than what I think. It may be less than what I think. But definitely I don't know what it is. So I leave that decision to divinity. To divinity. So vengeance is mine, said the Lord. They say like that. What does that mean? Does it mean that this Lord is a vengeful guy sitting there? So seeking revenge on everybody? No, that's not what it means. What it means is the decision, the sentencing, you leave up to me. That's what is meant. I am the karma phala data. Because if that is the only way, I believe that one can forgive. Forgive somebody who is totally disappears when it comes to acknowledgement of what is done. So it's possible to forgive a person, who does things but then doesn't even care about it and hurts us in the process. We can let go. Letting go is good for us. It's good for a relationship if there is a relationship. If there is a status quo to be brought back to. But if the person cannot acknowledge it, what is the status quo? What is the relationship there? There isn't any, really speaking. So it doesn't go back to anything. But then I don't need to hold on to it. But I have no way of letting go if a person in a relationship doesn't acknowledge it. There is a mechanism, but if that mechanism is denied to me, then I have to shift my paradigm to another mechanism. And that other mechanism allows me, empowers me to let go, to forgive even somebody who doesn't ask for forgiveness. So, because after all, I am not the one who forgives. You can only forgive a loan if you give somebody a loan, correct? I cannot determine anything about the other person. I do not know how culpable they are, but Bhagavan knows, and whatever has to happen will happen. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It doesn't mean letting go and everything is okay, everything is okay. Nothing is okay. Everybody pays the consequence of what is done. Others and me too. But then in that knowledge and in that faith, I'm able to free myself. I'm able to free myself of the hurt and anger and resentment. That is how I understand forgiveness. I think everything else is some kind of glamorization. This is when I say, oh, I forgive you. And then after 10 years, the volcano erupts. Because it's all been sitting inside. So I think I can take a break here and we'll do some questions.
Yeah, the saying, to err is human, to forgive is divine. We colloquially use that.
It's that, yeah, to forgive is divine.
Yes.
That vengeance is mine. All this,
Yeah.
when it says all religions, really, this is another important thing. All religions value forgiveness. We see this. So in our tradition we have forgiveness. Prayer, prayashchittam, it's called prayashchittam. It's asking for forgiveness. So I recognize that as a person, I do so many things. I cause hurt. Then I pray for forgiveness. So we have yani kani cha papani, janmantara katani cha, tani tani vilashanti, pradakshina, all this pradakshina, namaskara.
Yeah.
This is all kind of prayashchittam prayers. Then other prayers, every night you sing, karacharana kritam va, kayajam karmajam va. These are all prayers asking for, daily prayers for forgiveness. Prayashchittam we do. Pancha Mahayajnas we do every day. These are all prayashchittam for things that are done over there. There's a Christian tradition, you see. They have this Easter, Easter Lent is a day of atonement, forgiveness. The Judaic tradition has it. Yom Kippur. It's a very nice thing they do. So what they do is they will call people. They actually call. They call their friends. They call people they know, and then they will say, they will articulate it. I am sorry, sir, done something during this thing, that thing. They ask for, they apologize for whatever they did during the year. It is expressed, Not like us sometimes. Really, I did something to hurt you? Really, you felt hurt? Not that kind of a thing. How is that possible? No. So in Islam, Ramadan is all about atonement. Jain tradition they have a day also in the year when they recite this prayer.
Yeah, they do that here.
It's a day of atonement. We have daily prayers for atonement. It's on there, everybody. It's a very big value.
But
What's your but?
but
It's a pretty big fight.
so you look to the divine to forgive. you do the prayers once a year, once a day, whatever. Keep on going hurting. So you can pray for forgiveness with the divinity.
Yeah, so there are two ways of looking at that, you know. So, see, one thing, we're looking at this from the standpoint of the one
That's hurt,
who needs to forgive,
not the perpetrator.
not the
No, no, no,
perpetrator.
it applies to both.
So, of course, now the perpetrator's standpoint also is different, you know. So, the perpetrator is not like, you know, the whole confession,
Yeah,
the whole concept of confession.
yes,
Then confession involves atonement.
yes.
You have to do some repentance, repentance, confession, repentance, forgiveness. So that's the, again, same process. Psychological process is the same. You know. So, but that doesn't mean that see, when we talk of karma, an atonement doesn't wipe the slate clean.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't. If I do punya, or if I do lot of papa, and then I do punya, does it wipe the slate clean? Is that what is karma? It doesn't. It doesn't. You know, because if it did, suppose it did, you know, then what we would do, we are all very practical fellows. What I would do is, my initial half of my life, I'll do a lot of punya, lot of good actions, then gather a lot of punya. Then the fun starts. Then I can do anything I want to do. Then all the papam will be compensated by all the punyam that I did. So I'm back to, I have nothing to lose. That's not how the system works, my dear. The system works, papam is papam, punyam is punyam. For punyam I will get good result. For papam I will pay. Both ways. So there is no cancellation here. The atonement is also like that, I think. That's how I would see it. You can't then go for confession every weekend and then during the week prepare for the confession. Because after all, what's the point in going to confession if I have nothing to confess? Correct? I should have something to confess. Then I am a very, very pious person. But then if I live a clean life, then I have nothing to confess. That means then, you know, poor thing, your priest won't have any job to do. So I have to keep the system going. So the whole week I prepare for confession by doing all that is necessary to be done so that I can go and confess and then atone and keep the money flowing. You know, the money has to keep flowing. But that's sorry, I'm sorry. That's not the logic. I want to make, that's not what I'm advocating. Okay, it's not how it works.
But the law of karma, that's intellectually, it's very easy to say all this and say, yes, it's not for me to forgive, someone else will take care of it. But still the feeling of hurt remains with you, and how do you get over that? I mean, intellectually, yes.
Yeah, so that means, you know, intellectually there are a lot of things we understand. But that has to translate into, that means I know the logic of it.
Right.
But I don't really believe it. If I really believe it, then it will become part of my thinking. So the gap there is between logically understanding something and then making that as a fact of internalizing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then that is the fact of my life that I live by. And that I can turn to. That is called internalization. Otherwise it's academic.
Right.
That's the difference. So, but it has to be academic first. We have to understand these things. And then think about it, dwell upon it, and see in our life examples the occasions where we get opportunities to test it out, to apply it, to use it. And that is how we internalize it. That is why, that is all a process of growth. But there is a way. Otherwise, it's a tall order. When somebody says you forgive is good for you, it's good for you. As if we don't know that. And I try sincerely and nothing happens. Because this person goes about behaving like he never did anything. And then I carry him in my head and then spend sleepless nights and he is sleeping well. So who's the loser here? So for my own sake, for my own well-being, I have to create a certain understanding in me that I can live with, right?
Yeah.
That we can live with. So first it has to make sense. Intellectually it has to make sense so that I can accept. I'm not able to accept the fact that you forgive somebody when they did something to you and they don't even want to ready to, get anywhere near even acknowledging what happened. To me, it doesn't work. I don't know who it works for, but I haven't seen it work for anybody. But that doesn't mean it doesn't work. The mechanism is different. But when I understand it, then I have an opportunity to see it, to recognize it, to test it out, to internalize it. And then that becomes part of who I am. And it becomes part of my life. And then Shama Shastram Yasya Kare Durjanaha Kim Karishyasi. So, one who has that capacity to forgive, nobody can hurt that person. So it says, it's like fire falling on wet ground, on wet grass. It doesn't burn it. It itself goes. Something to think about. Anything else?
Sometimes when these relationships happen, I've heard the term toxic relationship, for example.
Yeah.
And
did we discuss this point last time? What was this toxic relationship? I don't remember. Somewhere. Yeah. It's true. There are certain things which is a toxic relationship. So, what is toxic? When something is toxic, poison is toxic. Snake bite is toxic to everybody except whom?
Snake.
Except the snake. Except the snake. That is one thing. And of course, so I have to develop antitoxins, So toxins can only be dealt with either by antitoxins or by antibodies.
Or stay away from it.
Or stay away from it. Protection. So that is what we do. In a relationship that is toxic, an antibody gives me immunity from the toxin. So if the toxin gets into my body knows how to protect it. An antitoxin is a negative, opposite. It neutralizes the toxin. It's an antitoxin. And then of course the other thing is you protect yourself. So in a relationship, what do? If a relationship is toxic to my well-being, first I develop antibodies so that I don't get into these relationships. If I happen to end up in one, then I develop antitoxin. Learn how to neutralize it, how to deal with it. If that also doesn't work, sometimes I have to just protect myself. keep away from. What else to do? What else to do? So when they use this term, is a toxic relation. But I tell you, it's not that anybody who doesn't get along with me is a toxic fellow.
That's the definition of toxic.
No, that's not toxic. Anyone who doesn't agree with me, it's toxic. This is a toxic relationship. This is like saying I outgrow the person. Most of the times when people get divorced, they say, why did you get divorced? I outgrew the person. I outgrew. What do you mean by outgrew? No, I grew up and up and up, and this fellow remained down. My head reached the clouds. My head is in the clouds. His head is down there on earth. How can we talk to each other? Is that what you mean by growing? Is that what is growth? That you grow till your head reaches in the clouds? I thought we all grew laterally, not vertically. When I grow, I include people. Expansion is inclusion. Growth involves inclusions, not exclusion. I cannot exclude the whole world and think I'm sitting on top of the world, on a pedestal, and I've outgrown everybody else. I'm part of the world. I'm interdependent on those around me. The more I grow, the more I include people in my whatever that sphere. That is growth. Growth is not vertical when you leave aside everybody else down below you. Growth is horizontal. When I'm able to accommodate people, improve people, that is growth. The toxic also gets absorbed. Yeah.
So fundamentally then, when we recognize the order, we understand the law of karma, and then but understanding it at a deeper level allows us to accept whatever.
Yeah, allows us to surrender to the Lord.
Yeah.
To surrender to the order.
So in other words, when we are not able to do that, does that also suggest that maybe we are not accepting Ishvara, we are not accepting the order as it is?
Yeah, that we are not recognizing it properly. There is a gap in my understanding, obviously. But I'm also not saying that if somebody hits your car and damages it, you don't go and seek your insurance, I'm not saying that and leave it up to Bhagavan. No, that's not the idea. Then you sue the fellow and collect, that's okay. Let him pay for the repair. I'm talking on a little bit, this more personal level. When things happen to the car, when it was parked and you don't know who hit it, the fellow is a hit and run, then what do you do? Then you pay the extra insurance. What else can you do? It's your karma. But don't dwell upon it. Move on. Like that. So it allows us to then move on in our life and not be held back by people who have already moved on.
Without acknowledging.
Yeah, they happily moved on, fast.
Yeah.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnah Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Thank you, dear Raji.